This is Mike Corey from ESPN, and you're listening to the Sports Objective Podcast, the unofficial podcast of the Pirates.
My heart is purple and gold. I'm a pirate down to my soul, and I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode. From the sidelines down to the post, put it down like not even close. All out to the last whistle blow. From the flag with the soul and crossbones. Everybody stand up, get your hands.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into the Sports Objective. We're coming to you on a Thursday night on YouTube, Facebook Live, as well as Twitter. You can also hear this pretty much anywhere podcasts are found. And we've got a big show of a lot of college football talk for you. And before we get to that and our first guest, I'd like to welcome in Kyle Barber. Kyle, how are things?
What's going on, Bubba? Yes, we're sitting here on a Thursday night in January, looking ahead to the national championship game and transfer portal and everything else going on in the world of college football. And it's a two-man crew tonight, Bubba, just the two of us. And the coach, of course, Coach Blackwell.
Yeah, I'm very excited to welcome back to the show former East Carolina defensive coordinator, longtime college football coaching veteran, David Blackwell. Coach, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I appreciate you guys having me on tonight, and look forward to visiting with you.
Absolutely.
Coach, before we
go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, Coach, before we went live, we were talking a lot in the green room, and we kind of worked backwards. I think the main topic of discussion is looking at the national championship game and you know, all that kind of stuff, but we were kind of talking about conference realignment a little bit right before we went live, and you know, Skip and you guys were at Louisiana Tech this past year, and the staff was let go, but I wanted to kind of keep talking about the conference realignment stuff as we go live here. Louisiana Tech got left behind in Conference USA. Louisiana Tech was extremely successful in Conference USA. I think Conference USA is lucky to be existing now. Honestly, it looked like Western Kentucky and Middle were going to go to the MAC, which I don't know what Louisiana Tech would have done had that happened. So thankfully they stayed in CUSA, and I think bringing in Liberty was a good move. I think CUSA is about as in good a shape as it could be in with all it lost. But what happened down there? There was a lot of speculation that the Sun Belt didn't want Louisiana Tech because of poor relations between La Tech and Louisiana Lafayette, and poor relationships between La Tech and Monroe, some hurt feelings going from way back when the Sun Belt was formed as a football league. And then there was also speculation that the reason Louisiana Tech didn't get into the Sun Belt is because they wasted too much time trying to get into the American instead of moving ahead to go to the Sun Belt when they had the opportunity. Do you know what the truth is there of why they got left in CUSA?
Yeah, I really don't. One of the nice things about being a coach is you kind of got your head down, and you kind of grind away, and those decisions are made way above your pay grade usually. But I do know there were some hard feelings, here between the Sun Belt and Louisiana Tech as far as when they first formed, and Louisiana Tech preferring to stay in Conference USA at that time. And then, there's always been a kind of a rivalry and some hard feelings, jealousy, whatever it is, between Lafayette, Monroe, and La Tech. And, so I think, obviously, I think as conference realignment goes, a lot of times when you start looking at state by state, what you don't want a lot of times is you start getting too many schools in the same state. And that was one of the things. I was at Jacksonville State for 4 years, and at one time Jacksonville State had an opportunity to move up beforehand, and but then all of a sudden South Alabama moves up and goes into the Sun Belt, and Troy's in there. Now does the Sun Belt really want a third Alabama school? And so I think that figures in sometimes too, where all of a sudden you get too many schools from one state in. And so, obviously I think conference realignment is something that's ongoing. I think every time people think it's over, it's never really over. I mean, when you look at what happened this year with Texas and Oklahoma, where it really was behind closed doors, the Big 12 was completely caught off guard and shocked by it. I think there's behind the closed doors, wink, wink, nod, nod meetings going on all the time. And I think they'll continue to be. And I think, a lot of people now look at the AAC as where they want to go when you're in a group of five. It's back when I was coming through, everybody wanted to go to Conference USA, back when it was first going. Conference USA had Louisville. It had, it was basically what became a lot of the Big 12 and the ACC, as realignment in the Big East, all that went on. But, through the years, we all see conference realignment, and I think it'll continue. Where it stops, who knows? I think that definitely the rich are going to get richer. I think there's probably a lot of thought process where, towards taking the elite schools and forming their own deal and creating a whole nother separate level and things like that. You hear that kind of talk, but I think, no one really knows what's going to happen. But I do know that probably the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, those schools really control a lot of it. The Pac-12, they really control a lot of what happens in college football nowadays.
And Coach, talk about this season, from the standpoint, Coach Skip Holtz, all the success that he and his staff, which you were part of there for the last few seasons there in Ruston, tremendous amount of success. We were talking about that before we went live as well. 7 or 8 bowls in a row prior to this season, and had won all but maybe one of those games. So kind of caught me off guard when you and the staff were let go. But and this year, especially all those near misses, like against NC State, Mississippi State. But just kind of talk about the opportunity that you had to work with Skip Holt, somebody that we obviously think a lot of, had a lot of success during his 5 years in Greenville.
Well, it was a disappointing season for us. We were in a bowl game a year ago. We were really 1 or 2 plays away from playing for a conference championship last year. We lost a really close game to UTSA last year and beat UAB. And, had we finished that game off against UTSA, would have played in the conference championship game last year against Marshall. And, went to a bowl game and had really a bad bowl game. We didn't play well. Turned the ball over a bunch, but really felt good about what we had coming back this season. And, we're up big on Mississippi State, 34-14, or 34-17 in the start of the fourth quarter, and gave up a kick return, and kind of momentum shifted, and they came back and took the lead. And then we went down and missed a field goal the last play of the game. And, then you had the SMU game where we give up a Hail Mary the last play of the game to lose. And then, NC State was another one that was a 1-score game. We're driving to win the game right at the end of the game, just run out of time. We had the ball down on about their 20-yard line going in at the end of the game, in a really close game, a 6-point game. And, so we had a lot of those opportunities this year, and it just didn't go our way. Old Dominion kicked a field goal the last play of the game to beat us. We just had so many of those really close losses, and just didn't, the momentum part of it. You like to go back and think if we close out the Mississippi State game, we close out the SMU game, the NC State game, and get the momentum, get the confidence, those kind of things, what would have happened. And, it was disappointing after, Coach had been to 7 straight bowl games or 8 straight bowl games and had won 7 of them. It was disappointing he wasn't given another year, an opportunity to fix it. But that's the nature of the beast right now. Like we talked about before we came on air, I worked for 4 years at Jacksonville State with John Gross, and, they won the conference in the spring. He won the conference, went to the 2nd or 3rd round of the playoffs in the spring, and then, beat Florida State this fall, but struggled and ended up getting let go. And, but that's it's definitely, I think as salaries continue to go up and things like that, the pressure is going to go up. And, it's not what you did in the past, it's what you do this year. And unfortunately for us, we didn't get it done.
Coach, that is insane to me. I did not realize Jacksonville had just literally, if everybody remembers the 2020 FCS football season was played spring 21. I did not realize Jacksonville State had won is that the Ohio Valley? What conference is that?
The Ohio Valley. Yeah, they won the conference and then lost to Delaware in the quarterfinals, semifinals. They were yeah. The interesting thing was them and Delaware both, played in Delaware ended up going to the Final Four last spring, and then both staffs were let go this fall. which was interesting.
Wow,
Coach,
that is incredible.
Coach, there in Ruston, you had the chance to work with a fellow Pirate and Joe Sloan, offensive coordinator. And, Joe recently was hired by Brian Kelly to be the quarterback's coach for LSU. Talk about Joe.
Just, again, guy, you talk about a guy bleeds purple and gold now. I mean, he's definitely a Pirate. I mean, he's a huge Pirate fan. The guys around the office kid him about it because he talks about East Carolina all the time. And so he gets to wear purple and gold now. So he'll be excited about that. But no, I talked to Joe earlier today. He and I, we're neighbors. We live in the same neighborhood. So he lives down the street from me. And so, excuse me, this great opportunity for him. Obviously, front end of a deal with Brian Kelly at LSU, one of the storied programs. It's a great opportunity for him, and we're excited for him and happy for him, and I think he'll do a great job. He's a guy that's going to dot the I's, cross the T's. He's a great recruiter. He's a young guy that's got a lot of energy, and I think he's got a great future ahead of him.
That's landed on your feet. I mean, I know he was OC at La Tech, but you really can't look at his quarterback coach at LSU as being a step down.
No, not at all. That he absolutely hit a home run, and he knows it, and he's very grateful and excited, and should be. And I think he'll do a great job there.
Yeah, and Pirate fans should keep an eye on him as a quarterback coach at LSU. It'd be interesting to see if he gets another OC opportunity at the FBS level down the road. And always coaching changes, as you mentioned. Coach Houston appears to be on the rise, which means Power Fives will come knocking. So Pirate fans should probably keep an eye on Joe Sloan.
Yeah, no question. No doubt.
Coach, somebody you also had the opportunity to work with in the past during your days at Fordham was, of course, Joe Moorehead, former Mississippi State coach, Oregon offensive coordinator, was hired as the new head coach at Akron.
Yeah, and that Joe really wanted to get back towards the East Coast. I think his parents and his wife's parents are both in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. For him, it's an opportunity to get back to the eastern part of the country. And I think he had the itch to be a head coach again. He was very successful at Fordham, did a great job at Mississippi State. Honestly, I mean, he went to 2 bowl games in 2 years. And really, I think sometimes, as people know, excuse me, it's hard to follow an immensely popular coach. And Dan Mullen had done a tremendous job at Mississippi State and kind of raised the bar there a little bit, but I think sometimes programs need to look at their past a little bit. And when a guy comes in, goes to two bowl games in his first 2 seasons at your school, is definitely at a school that's really has struggled in the past. I think it was disappointing to see him not get more time at Mississippi State, and but I think it was good to see him land on his feet and at Oregon, and now he's got an opportunity to run his own program again at Akron. I think he'll do a great job.
Yeah, I followed Joe Moorehead for a while. I loved him at Fordham, then his OC at Penn State, and then went on Mississippi State. And when Akron hired him from Oregon, to me, when you look at resources versus hires, I rank everybody said USC had the best hire in college football, hiring Lincoln Riley, and you could arguably they did, but USC could hire anybody they wanted to. Akron hiring Joe Moorehead was, to me, the best hire in college football. For them to pull that off, who in the hell was Akron going to get better than Joe Moorehead? And I really believe had he waited a little bit, he'd got the Temple job. I could be wrong on that.
No, I think you're right. When you look at, to be able to have a guy take as big a pay cut as he took to take that job, now a good thing for Joe. Joe was the offensive coordinator there under J.D. Brookhart.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they won a conference championship, actually won the MAC championship when he was there. And so he's familiar with the program and the area. And so I think he, as is the case, I think sometimes it's kind of like I said when I came to ECU and the defense was the worst in the country. There's nowhere to go but up. And that's kind of how I'm sure he's looking at Akron is that way is, it can't get any worse. So anything you do is going to be an improvement. And we made great improvement in 1 year. And we're 3rd in the nation in tackles for loss, top 15 in the nation in sacks. I mean, we were top 10 in forced 3 and outs, and we improved 100 yards a game and almost 10 points a game, from 1 year to the next. But, you're still putting lipstick on a pig because statistically we still weren't a great defense, and I think they're finally starting to turn the corner with some stability defensively there. But I think Joe's got an opportunity to kind of come in and do that and make a lot of improvement and continue with steady improvement on the front side of a deal.
Coach, you mentioned your year here at East Carolina under Scotty Montgomery. Do you think had you been here since year one under Scotty Montgomery, things would have went differently with his tenure? And just in general, there's been a lot of discussion about practice style under Montgomery when he was here. Can you talk about that? Did you think that we were physical enough in practice in terms of thud and all that kinds of stuff?
Yeah, honestly, the spring I went through and the fall I went through there, we were very physical. I mean, as far as practices, we did a lot of live scrimmages, a lot of live work, a lot of, team run game, the things that we didn't get. And that was the same thing that we kind of got this year with Coach Holtz is philosophically the style of offense that they ran and the style of offense we ran here under Joe and under Skip is, a heavy 4-wide set offense where you don't get a lot of the tight end sets, 2 tight end sets, which from a defensive perspective, it makes it a little tougher sometimes because a lot of teams you play are going to give you those looks. And so sometimes you don't get all the looks you're going to see in games. Scotty was good about doing it for us, trying to help us with that stuff. And, I do believe had I been there longer, the year before I got there, offensively, they were very competitive, and they lost several close games. And, I think the year, my year there, we struggled on the offensive line. We were young on the offensive line. We had a ton of injuries on the offensive line. And then we're inconsistent quarterback position with, unsettled there with, trying to kind of had the dual monster going with playing 2 quarterbacks and then Holton taking over halfway through the year and that kind of thing. And so, I think we were kind of finding our way offensively that year. And whereas the year before they were, offensively they were very competitive. And obviously Scotty's first year there, they were very good offensively. And so, I think that had the defense married up, the year earlier, I do think that we would have had a chance to do some things. I think the year I was there, we were 3-9. You lost a really close game to UAB to South Florida. We lost a really close game to Tulane. We were obviously the first game of the season, a nightmare against North Carolina A&T, where obviously we should have won that football game. We very easily could have been a bowl team that year.
Now, Coach, that season, not to get off on a tangent, but I think I can't help but to bring up Nate Harvey. What a season he had, and you really found a gem there in Nate Harvey. Oh
man, just number one, just a first-class human being, and just a tremendous young man. And then just, it's a great story. Everyone knows the story, but, he was a backup running back, great special teams player, all that kind of stuff, and comes out as a conference defensive player of the year. And I've been very fortunate. I've coached 6 conference player of the years at 4 different schools. And so, we've been able to put guys in position to make plays and they've made plays. And we've, it's when you have edge presence and you have corners, you usually have a chance to be pretty good on defense. And, that's one of the things that I think that, if you can cover and you can get after the quarterback and affect the quarterback, those are good qualities to have.
Now, Coach, we're kind of all over the place tonight, but one topic I want to bring up, topic that's near and dear to Pirate Nation's heart right now, because I think it really truthfully had a lot to do with why we didn't play our bowl game. I think Boston College used COVID, and this is just me talking, used COVID as an excuse not to play because of opt-outs. I think pretty much their entire offensive line had opted out of that bowl game, 4 of their starting 5, because of potential to go to the NFL draft, and their quarterback had been injured all year. Basically, they used COVID as an excuse, but that's neither here nor there. What are your thoughts on opt-outs? I understand these guys, that see the NFL, the draft coming up in a few months, and, that's a lot of money on the line, but you played your whole career. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I get it. I do get it. You see that money out there in front of you, but at the same time, I don't get it also because Why opt out in the bowl game? Why not opt out game 12? Why not opt out game 11? Why not opt out game 10? Why is the bowl game any different?
No, it's been and I think you'll see more of it. Honestly, it's kind of the thing to do a little bit. It's kind of like, okay, I'm going to the NFL. It's kind of like I'm coming out earlier. I'm announcing for the NFL. And I think some kids do it just because they see other guys do it, without putting a lot of thought into it. I think that, it's interesting. You look at the teams that are in the Final Four for the national championship don't have any opt-outs. And there's a lot of first-round picks running around out there on those fields. But I think every time the media blows up, the quarterback at Ole Miss getting hurt. The media just blowing that up, and it scares guys, and it gives agents ammunition. And and there's guys that are you're a legitimate first-round pick and you're playing in the New Orleans Bowl, and, do I want to take that chance? I remember when we had Gaines Adams when I was at Clemson, which we knew was going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft at defensive end, and he was very apprehensive. We were playing in the Music City Bowl against Kentucky, and, he was like, man, I got to make it through one more game without getting hurt, But when that starts getting in a kid's head, it affects how they play too. And so I definitely think it's bad. I haven't, what you said about BC, things like that. I think the opt-outs make the COVID situation worse. I do know this. I went and visited I went and watched practice this bowl season with a team, and while I was there, they were just coming off of. They didn't know if they were going to play. They didn't know if their opponent was going to be able to play, because of opt-outs plus COVID had really thinned out positions to the point where they had no backups. And so I think that there is some legitimacy with the opt-outs too, if a team has an outbreak. And then I think, everyone around the country right now is seeing the effects of this new, Omicron or whatever they call it, the wave that's sweeping our country right now that is more transmittable. I do know a lot of teams that I have friends that were in bowl games that have told me that they were really close to not being able to play the game. And so I do think that I know fans get upset about it. I know people get upset about it. I do agree that and I think last fall especially, there were teams that used it as an excuse, not to play when they didn't feel good about the matchup or whatever it was. And I do think there are teams that do that, but there are teams that legitimately have problems too.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you're in a pickup truck on the way to Annapolis, Maryland, you find out that game's canceled, it'll make you hot.
I'm sure. You feel for that, and you feel for, the people, like at NC State. I mean, as much as I dislike NC State usually, as a Pirate, but to have the game canceled the day of the game, and to have, you got fans that spend an awful lot of money flying to a bowl site, and things like that. That's really, really, really unfair and really hard to swallow. Yeah. And I can see, especially as a fan, you spend money to fly across country to go watch a bowl game, and the rug gets pulled out from under your feet. I'd be hot too. And, my heart goes out to those guys, and obviously Coach Ruff's there, and Ruff and I are very close. And, I kiddingly was, I'm not an NC State fan, and I'm an ECU fan, but you hate to see that happen to anybody.
Oh, no doubt about it. So that's something when it happened, the very thing you just said, Coach, as far as, Pirate Nation had it tough and headed to Annapolis, but flying across the country to San Diego, wow.
Yeah.
You know what? I kind of weighed that though, because here's my thought on that.
Because San Diego is a great destination.
Right. Yeah, if you flew to San Diego, you're already there. There's a lot of stuff to do. We were going to Annapolis. I was on my way, Bubba. You were on your way. You're only going to, and this is nothing against the city of Annapolis, but you're going to Annapolis, Maryland for that bowl game, drink a few beers downtown, eat some crab cakes. At least if you're in San Diego and you flew out there, yeah. If you flew, you made a week of that.
You make a trip out of it. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
You're turning that into a vacation.
No doubt.
You're not just going to a football game. So I don't know. Bubba knows how angry I was. Bubba was angry too. Bubba rationalized it faster than I did. I was just ready to kill people for several days.
Yeah, that's what I had to take Kyle off speakerphone, Coach. I was crossing into Virginia. Kyle called me. He said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Yeah." Very quickly took him off speakerphone. But no, another hot topic in addition to the opt-outs is obviously NIL. Report came out today that former Eastern Michigan quarterback, Detroit Lion, Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Charlie Batch, I guess his company had offered Oklahoma transfer Caleb Williams $1 million to come play for the Eastern Michigan Eagles. Had you seen that, Coach?
I did. I saw it literally right as I came on with you guys, and I think that's the slippery slope with the NIL deal that the NCAA knew was going to happen. Probably didn't want to. It's the whole theory behind the NIL is giving guys that are on your team an opportunity to use their name, image, and likeness to make money. And all of a sudden, people are using it to recruit guys to their school. And basically what they're doing is making it legal. Coaches, we're not allowed legally to set it up, but you can't, as a coach, you can't go to a booster and say, "Hey, Bubba, why don't you sponsor Holton Ahlers and give him $1 million to come on your radio show and do all this?" But you can do that. We can't do it, but you can do it. And that's what's starting to happen is you have alumni and boosters that have money, have the ability to do that can reach out to a recruit or can reach out to a transfer and say, "Hey, I got an NIL deal for you if you're at my university," and there's really not a lot people can do about it right now. And so I think it's definitely a slippery slope, because of the name, image, and likeness. When are you allowed to use it? Obviously there's high school kids that are signing NIL deals now. So it's definitely something that I think, as is the case with anything, it's going to take some adjusting, and people are going to have to learn how to deal with it and how to use it and the pros and the cons of it. And I'm sure at some point there'll be some type of regulation, maybe on when or where you can do it. It's got to be post enrollment or something like that. Maybe, I don't know, but I mean, at some point, there's got to be some control over it a little bit, but right now it's kind of open season. And you've got guys at some of these bigger schools that are obviously making an awful lot of money, and good for them. I think that part of it's great for the athletes. But it's also one of those where obviously schools that have deep pockets and have wealthy alums and great resources, that's going to continue to allow the rich to get richer.
Yeah, like Eastern Michigan. Of
Well,
all schools.
You see, if Eastern Michigan can do that, can you imagine what some of these other schools can do?
It's funny. It's funny to inside, as far as me and Bubba goes, that it's Eastern Michigan, because Bubba knows how much I love Chris Creighton. When not to bring up a sore subject, but when Coach Montgomery was hired, on my wish list there was two coaches, Mike Houston and Chris Creighton.
Mm-hmm.
So I love Chris Creighton, and I'm actually a huge fan of their athletic director, Scott Weatherby, who was here under Terry Holland. So it's funny to me that this is happening at Eastern Michigan. I hope they get him, just because I love Chris Creighton and love their AD Scott Weatherby. So it's very intriguing to me because of those guys.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder, you don't know behind the scenes what's going on. Obviously, Brent Venables going in there. New staff coming in, obviously brought in, offensive coordinator from Ole Miss, but did he know beforehand that the quarterback from Central Florida was coming in? You wonder those kind of things. And then, the statements made by his family, or they're looking for someone to prepare him for the NFL. And, it's not a money grab kind of deal, and so that, I think it'll be interesting to see where he lands. It definitely will be interesting to follow it. The transfer portal is definitely making things more interesting, because it's really free agency in college football.
That is a pro style offense they run at Eastern Michigan. So if he wants to get prepared for the NFL, it ain't no spread it out and sling the ball everywhere. That is a pro style offense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the word is the University of Georgia has offered him $2 million. But something you said a moment ago.
Sounds so ridiculous.
Something you said a moment ago, Coach, made me very quickly want to go back to the opting out issue. You've heard a lot of people talk, what could we potentially do? And do you see anything like any type of incentives being thrown at these players to make them want to play in a bowl game that's not the college football playoff?
Well, I think that would probably have to come from the bowls. Honestly, I think, at this point in their careers, guys, if playing with their teammates and things like that's not enough of an incentive, and playing one more time as a whole team and opportunity to go play and enjoy a bowl game. When I was a player, Peach Bowl was a great trip. Liberty Bowls were great trips. We had fun. We had fun as a team, and then we went out and won, which was even more fun. And as a coach, they've always been fun. Their bowl trips are a reward, and it's got to the point where some players look at them as it's as a duty. Where it's something you have to do. And I think that it's sad when I think some teams that go every year probably take them for granted a little bit. Whereas, you take a team like ECU, hadn't been to a bowl game in a few years. I'm sure their players were really disappointed not to be able to go on the trip, not be able to do the things,
Well, they went on the trip, Coach.
Well, that's true.
They
were there for the trip, but I think there's, I think that, maybe it's an NIL deal. Maybe the bowls offer players an NIL deal to play. I don't know. I mean, they can do it legally.
I had a thought on this.
The Cheez-Its bowl game in Orlando. They sign NIL deals to eat Cheez-Its or something.
There you go. I'll sign up for that. I had a thought on this, and I don't know if it's oversimplifying it, and it really doesn't involve NIL. Do you think moving the bowl games up outside of the New Year's Six and the playoffs, do you think playing them all prior to Christmas, that week prior to Christmas, it seems like there was less opt-outs for those bowls. Guys not having as much time to think about it. Your after championship game, pretty much, the bowl game started on like December 16th this year. Do you think if you play all your bowls outside of the New Year's Six and the playoffs, that week before Christmas, and I'm sure ESPN isn't going to want to do that, but do you think that would help limit opt-outs at all?
Honestly, it could. I think that you would see a lot of the players and coaches. I can speak for myself. If we weren't in the Peach Bowl, the Gator Bowl, one of the bigger bowls, the Fiesta Bowls, one of those type bowls. And if we weren't in that, I've always enjoyed playing before Christmas, obviously, as a coach. You get the bowl game, you get to go, you get all that done, and then you get a Christmas break, and your players get a Christmas break. The bowl games where you leave the 22nd, 23rd, and we were in Arizona when I was at Pitt over Christmas. We left on like the 23rd and spent Christmas in a hotel, and that's hard. I mean, I have a friend that have several friends that are on the Houston staff, and they spent Christmas in Birmingham. They left Christmas Eve and spent Christmas Day in Birmingham, Alabama. Everything's closed. They basically spent the whole day in the hotel. I mean, the city shut down for Christmas. So, I mean, I think sometimes for these players, it's hard on them to be. A lot of them's families can't afford to fly and come see them at the games, and so a lot of them are over Christmas by themselves. But the problem with it is almost every one of the bowls nowadays is on ESPN. And they start at 11:30 in the morning, and then there's a 3:30 game, and then there's a 6 o'clock game, and then there's a 9:15 game, and they go all day and every day all the way through Christmas. And all these people sitting at home eating their turkey and their ham and all that, they got football on all day, and they watch it just like I did. And so the TV ratings and things like that drive it more than fans in the stands do. And so I think I think it's something that's definitely – coaches and players would be in favor of, but I don't think it'll ever happen.
Coach, you've been very generous with your time tonight. The one more topic we had to discuss with you is obviously Monday night's game between number 1 Alabama and number 3 Georgia. But before we discuss that a bit, Johnny Robertson chimed in on Facebook. He said, besides opt-outs, there are a lot kids that also enter the portal but want to play in the bowl game and are denied that opportunity. I believe if a kid's on your current roster when a bowl game takes place, he should be allowed to participate. Mel Tucker at Michigan State allowed 10 of his players that entered the portal to play in the Peach Bowl. So that's an interesting take as well.
Yeah, it is, and that really comes down to the individual head coach. What their philosophy is. If guys are going to enter the portal at the end of the season. I know Clemson a year ago or 2 years ago had a quarterback that was going to enter that didn't do it immediately. That he was waiting until the end of the season. I think everyone kind of handles those things. I know there's coaches that as soon as guys enter the portal, they're basically off the team. Your scholarship's honored until the end of the semester, but we don't want you around the football team anymore. Basically, a lot of them look at it as they're quitting on them, that kind of thing. I think a lot of kids nowadays want to announce they're going into the portal early just so they can get a head start on it, on finding out who's interested in them and those kind of things. And, to me, if they're going to keep playing and keep being a part of the football team and that kind of thing, it's not a distraction to your team. I don't really see a problem with it. But, again, I think that's usually up to the individual head coaches.
And then you also had Johnny Gardner on Facebook chiming in with, it's crazy to think that in our era, this is what SMU got shut down for now. Just it's out there running rampant.
Yeah, it's one of my good friends. I laughed when I saw that just because when I was at Clemson, one of my good friends was a Clemson grad who, he's an old retired coach that used to come around all the time. His name was Whitey Jordan, and he'd been in the NFL, been in World League, been at Florida, he'd been at SMU. He was a running back coach at SMU when they had Dickerson and the Pony Express. And so he was laughing about, he said, everybody said we were cheating. He said, man, when they shut us down, you should have seen the parking lot. He said, the people out there in the parking lot, those guys got more to leave us and they got to come to us, and he was always kidding, laughing, joking around. But it definitely right now has a little bit of a Wild West feel as far as the NIL and things like that go. I know the traditionalists and people that there's a lot of coaches that don't like it. There's a lot of fans, obviously, that don't like it. But I think just like with anything with college football, you better learn to adjust. And it's one of the things that drives some of the older coaches out of the business is the inability to adjust. And that's why guys like Nick Saban, guys, Bobby Bowden for all the years, Bobby Bowden was a head coach. The guys that are true legends of the game, they learn to evolve, and they learn to evolve with time. And guys that can't evolve end up out, and unsuccessful.
There's one more thing before we get to the national championship game and wrap this up. We talk about transfer portal, and to me, the transfer portal, I understand guys should have the freedom to go where they want, but to me, it's ruining the game a little bit. And I'd like to see it curtailed just a tad. Go back. Personally, I'd like to see it go to back to having to sit out 1 year unless your head coach is fired or leaves for another job. If your coach leaves, then you can leave without having to sit out a year. Otherwise, I think the kids should have to sit out a year because, as fans, we can't even invest in some of these players. You have a player and you fall in love with him, and I think you got to worry yourself to death if he's going to transfer to a Power 5 school.
Well, and I think what's going to happen is, and you're starting to see it already, is a lot of the Group of 5 schools are going to recruit the transfer portal instead of high school players. Why do you want to go sign a guy, develop him, and all of a sudden you hit on a tremendous player? I go back to when I was a young coach at East Carolina, and we signed Rod Coleman out of Simon Gratz High School in Philadelphia that had no offers. And Ken Treadway signed him. And all of a sudden Rod comes in there and is just a tremendous player and ends up being an NFL draft pick. In today's football, someone would recruit him right off your football team. And those are the guys that you go out and you sign and develop, and where you're a program like East Carolina through the years has made a living with Robert Jones and these guys that have just been Jeff Blakes, the guys that maybe flew under the radar a little bit coming in that become tremendous football players. And, that's where it's going to hurt the Group of 5s is you sign a guy who is maybe a developmental player that you really hit on, and guy comes in, plays a lot and really develops. And then all of a sudden they test the waters and they transfer to a Power 5. And, I think it's regulation wise, I think what's got to be, and there's going to be some limits. I think there's going to be this year where they have to be in the portal by a certain time. I think what you got to be careful of is all of a sudden you turn around in July and 6 guys transfer out and you can't replace them, right before fall camp starts. So I think there's going to be a May limit, on you got to be in the portal by May. I think there's going to be some regulations to it. I'd like to see a window kind of like NFL free agency where you got a 2-week window or a 3-week window right at the end of the season where you can enter the portal and then it's over. But I think it'll change. It's going to become more like free agency. And I think again, this being really the first true year of it, I think everybody's kind of feeling their way through it.
Coach, when you take a look at Monday night's matchup between Alabama and Georgia, obviously those two teams met just over a month ago now. Alabama did something that most people would have thought, or at least most of the analysts around the country were saying that would not be done, and that was light up a Georgia defense that had given up very few touchdowns all season. And Bryce Young threw for over 400 yards. How do you see the rematch playing out on Monday?
It's going to be interesting. In the playoff era, I think there's been in the playoff era, there's been 13 Power 5 conference championship games that have been rematches. Oregon and Utah this year was one. The team that won the first one is 7-6. So I think it's 50-50 on the rematches. It's not, people used to say it's really hard to beat a team twice. Well, I think that's really irrelevant in this game. I think it's 50-50, if you look at stats in college football. What you said, Young threw 421 yards, 3 touchdowns. He ran for a touchdown. I think that was big. He had 40 yards rushing in that game. Alabama was able to protect the quarterback. They struggled against Auburn. They didn't give up any sacks against Georgia. Georgia brought a lot of 4-man rush. I think you'll probably see Georgia try to be a little bit more aggressive. If you look at Alabama and Georgia statistically, they're very equal. Both teams are between 450, 500 yards a game offensively. I think Alabama's 490, Georgia's like 450 a game. In offense, Alabama scores 41 points a game. Georgia scores 39 points a game. Scoring defense, Alabama's like 19 points a game. Georgia's 9 points a game, which is amazing. Alabama gives up 290 yards a game. Georgia gives up 260 yards a game, right in that area. But if you look at them, the areas where they are different, Alabama's given up 217 yards a game passing. Georgia's only given up 175. So Alabama's defense has been a little bit more susceptible to teams that can throw the football. Alabama doesn't run the ball as well. Alabama's rushing offense is not as good. Alabama throws for over 300 yards a game, where Georgia's a lot more balanced. Alabama's 110th in the nation in sacks allowed. Georgia is second in the nation in sacks allowed. Well, they're second and third, or third and fourth in sacks by team. Both of them are top 5 in the nation in getting sacks. Georgia's second in the nation in allowing sacks, and Alabama's 110th in the nation. So I think the fact Alabama was able to protect the quarterback was a big deal. They turned around against Cincinnati, gave up 2 sacks and 4 quarterback pressures. And so they're not going to be able to go out and run the ball the way they did against Cincinnati. And I thought Cincinnati really hung in there. If they don't get all those passes batted down, that could have been a really interesting football game. And I thought Cincinnati looked more worthy of being there than Michigan did, just
no doubt.
In the two games. But I think this game's really going to come down, and you hate to say it, but it's going to be who can affect the quarterback because both of them give up like 85 yards a game rushing. I don't think it's realistic to think if one of those two teams can come in there and establish a run game, then they'll have a great chance to win. But I think it's unrealistic to think that that either one of them can establish a run game against those defenses. And so I think it's going to come down again to the quarterbacks. And Georgia threw for 340 yards against Alabama, but you had a pick 6 and you had another costly interception. And so, I think the big thing, Alabama's quarterback's proven he can put the team on his shoulders and go win it. Can Georgia's quarterback do that? In that game, he didn't. He threw the pick 6. He had the other costly interception. That's, I think, going to be the biggest thing. I think on paper, Georgia's a better team. They're a deeper team. They're more balanced. They can run it. They can throw it. Alabama's a little more one-dimensional. They're become more of a throwing offense. Both teams play great defense. Alabama's a little more susceptible to pass, but it's hard Coach Saban does. I mean, obviously he's won a lot of these for a reason. This is going to be an interesting game to watch and a fun game to watch, and I think that you got probably, in my opinion, the two best teams in the country. I mean, they've proven that. Alabama didn't look as good through the season as Georgia did. Georgia looked like a once-in-a-lifetime kind of football team throughout the season that didn't have very many weaknesses, and they got exposed a little bit in that conference championship game. They'll be hungry, but there's also – I spent 4 years at Jacksonville State, and we won 4 straight conference championships. It got to a point in our league where we were in people's heads in conference games. A lot of times I think people put us up on a pedestal, and I think Georgia's got to be careful of that. Is Alabama in their head a little bit? They've lost 4 straight, whatever it is to them. Kirby's never beaten them. Is Alabama in their head a little bit? Is the confidence there that they can truly go win that football game? It's going to be interesting to watch.
On that topic of pressuring the quarterback, one of the shows I listen to a lot is Pod Up with Matthews in the morning, and one of the points that Shane Matthews was making, he said watching that game, Cincinnati, as you mentioned, was able to pressure Bryce Young quite a bit and really disrupt him, sacking him 2 or 3 times and so forth. And you could tell he was really uncomfortable, and they were doing that with the 3-man front. Obviously, Georgia runs a different defense, but do you think Kirby Smart and that defensive staff, do you think they'll implement some of those things that UC was doing?
I think definitely, because, I mean, Georgia is Kirby comes out of the Alabama family of defense, which is their base 3-4 that morphs into a 4-man front a lot. And so I think I would expect to see Georgia bring more pressure in this game. I think they really felt going into the last game, it looked like that after watching Auburn's front 4, Auburn got after Alabama with the front 4, with not a lot of pressure, just their ends were giving them a hard time. And I think Georgia probably was a little arrogant coming in. As good as their defensive front had been, they're the best in the college football, the best defense in the nation. And I think they probably came into that game feeling confident that they could get pressure with their front 4. And obviously in those kind of games, adrenaline kicks in. People do things. Maybe they chip the ends. They do some things to minimize the 4-man rush. But I think I'd probably see Georgia be more aggressive this time. They're going to blitz more. I would be shocked if you didn't see some odd package, some of that stuff that Cincinnati had success with, because Cincinnati was able to get after them in the pass game. They struggled stopping the run, but they were able to affect the quarterback. And I think that's you go back to the Auburn game. That was a game that Auburn had won. If the running back stays in bounds, the game's over, and Alabama's not even in the playoffs. But again, the quarterback is the key to the castle. I mean, obviously playing Alabama, that kid put them on their shoulders and went and won the Auburn game, and then he played lights out against Georgia. And they're going to have to affect the quarterback. The other thing I think is a big difference for Georgia is Alabama really limited their playmakers. Against Michigan, they had 4 different receivers score touchdowns against Michigan. Against Alabama, the only player on the offense that had over 50 yards of offense was tight end. Against Michigan, they had 4 different players that had over 50 yards of offense. And so I think that Georgia's got to spread the ball around. They got to be balanced. They got to move the ball around and not become one-dimensional, where basically Alabama took their people away and said, you can have the tight end. This is what it is. You got the tight end. And it'll be interesting to see, again, can Georgia's quarterback carry them if the run game's not there? And then can he move the ball around? Because when they move the ball around, they're tough to defend.
No doubt. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out on Monday night. And will definitely be a tremendous ball game, Coach. And we certainly didn't intend on keeping you this long. We appreciate you being so generous with your time. And, Pirate Nation certainly, praying for you. We know you're going to land on your feet and do an excellent job wherever you end up.
ECU is our favorite place. My family, we've bounced around, but definitely my son, it's his favorite place we've ever lived. And he wants to go back. It wouldn't shock me if he doesn't end up in 2 years as a freshman at East Carolina in college. I mean, he loves it there. And, we do as a family, and very, very strong feelings about the place, but we appreciate y'all having me on, and I've enjoyed it. I got nothing else to do right now, so might as well get on here and talk to you guys. So I got time on my hands right now as I'm still searching for that next spot. So But definitely would love to be back in Greenville one day. You never know what's going to happen in this profession. So, it's definitely a special place to us.
No doubt about it. Coach, take care, and we'll talk to you down the road.
All right, man. Y'all have a great night.
Thanks, Coach.
We will continue talking Monday night's game now and talking Georgia, Alabama, as well as I'm sure some other topics, maybe a little coaching carousel. Welcome in from ESPN, Rene Ingoglia. Rene, how are you?
Guys, I'm doing great. And first of all, I got to say, I'm a big David Blackwell fan. I've dealt with him many times. He's a really good coach. And as you guys signed off there, I'm wishing him nothing but the best. A lot of people, the assistant coaches, coordinators, everyone just forgets about them during all these big coaching moves around the country. And it can take a toll on families, and it's a tough life. People always ask me, why didn't you coach? There's so much money. And I'm like, do you understand what kind of life that is? It's a hard life. So wishing Coach Blackwell the best. And I know he'll land on his feet because he is a good coach.
Yeah, like you're saying.
There is a lot of money in there. Well, hold on one moment. There is a lot of money in coaching, Rennie, but not near the money there is in a true crime sports podcast.
So before we get going,
Kyle's getting in early, Rene.
I have to. Well, let's get it out of the way. So, Kyle, you 2022, you'll be happy to know the last week I've been putting together a podcast. I'm taking your advice, and it is going to be a crime one. I'm going to partner up with a good friend of mine who's a homicide detective. And we're gonna do it. We're gonna mix sports and crime, and we're gonna. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back and look at some good cases, past and present, and kind of break them down, and then have some fun along the way and some behind the scene look. So if it takes off, Kyle, and it does good, you will get the credit, and you will at least get dinner from me.
Will I get a check?
We'll see how much it takes off. Everybody thinks they're the next Joe Rogan. I don't. And you've been pushing me to do this probably for a year now.
Yep.
So I'm going to do it. I mean, listen, it can't hurt, right? It's my downtime now, so we'll see if it takes off. So you're definitely going to get credit if it works, and if it doesn't, you'll definitely get blamed. So
I'll get blamed.
One way your name's going to be in there. So.
You wait.
Kyle, you better listen to and retweet every episode.
Oh, I will. There's no doubt. Look, you wait. You wait until it catches on so big, and Randy's asked to do, ESPN specials. It becomes an ESPN series, ESPN Plus. I'm telling you right now, true crime is one of the hottest genres out there. You take that with sports. Some of the mess I see on ESPN Plus. I'm telling you right now, a weekly true crime. And we're moving it. We're already moving up. We're going from podcast now. Now that you got the podcast going, I'm pushing for an ESPN Plus series for you.
Well, one step at a time. Let's get that podcast going. So, I mean, in all seriousness, I'm hoping in the next month or so we'll have it launched. I'm in the beginning stages of figuring stuff out, but I think it could go, Kyle. I think you might be onto something, but we'll see. You never know with podcasts what ends up going and what doesn't. All right,
I can't wait to hear it.
Looking forward to it. Here recently, you had the opportunity to do something new. So, tell folks about that opportunity that you had to work with the Under Armour All-American game.
Yeah, so I did the practices. So for those who don't know, the Under Armour All-American game, they come down here. The game is, I think it was Sunday the 2nd at the Citrus Bowl. But the whole week, both teams are here, and they practice out at ESPN Wide World Sports. And ESPN puts 2 of those practices on TV. So I got to do kind of the field analyst, where I kind of walk around, observe, watch, interview, talk to the players. And I tell you guys, I've done it a couple times now. By far, and this was a consensus with everyone there, all the other analysts and the guys that really do the nuts and bolts in recruiting, Craig Halbert and Tom Luganbill, it's the most talent in one place that they've seen, and by far the most talent that's been involved in the Under Armour All-America game. So,
give us a glimpse behind the scenes and just that process, and some of the talent that you did have the opportunity to see. Who were some of those, young but very talented high school players that stood out?
So the thing I think that's the best for the players is, everyone, not everyone, but there's a lot of 5 stars there and there's a lot of 4 stars. So, when you're playing in high school, you're by far the best, right? And you're dominate. Then you get there and you're practicing against them. You're doing one-on-ones and you're like, holy cow, everyone's really good. So it's a really good indoctrination to get the kids ready for when they go to college. And a lot of these kids were leaving really this week. They were enrolling. A lot of early enrollees. I mean, that's one of the new things. A couple guys stuck out to me. A guy by the name of Walter Nolan. He's a defensive tackle. He was the number 1 rated player overall, even higher than Travis Hunter. And he's going to Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher. I think A&M had 15 players in that Under Armour All-America game that are going to A&M. So it's just a matter of time before A&M is in the playoff. I mean, he can't help himself. I mean, the talent there is ridiculous. So he was, again, a defensive tackle, probably about 6'3", 320. I watched him in one-on-ones. No one could block. I saw him get blocked one time, and I forgot that offensive tackle's name, but he was headed to Texas. But other than that, I mean, he was dominating. He was power, bull rush, speed, everything. And then Travis Hunter, the kid that's going to Jackson State and it's gonna play with Deion, he's the real deal. I mean, he's as good. He may be a better wide receiver than he is defensive back, but obviously going to Jackson State and playing for Deion, he's gonna be a DB. He's gonna probably play both ways at Jackson State, to be honest with you. He's the real deal. He was really good. And then the other one that really impressed me, and listen, they were all impressive. Luther, I think it's Luther Burden, and I hope I didn't mess his name up because there were so many kids there. He was the number 1 ranked wide receiver in the nation. He's from St. Louis. He stayed home. Missouri got him. Missouri actually had a pretty good recruiting class, and they got him to stay home. He was really impressive. Like a 6'3", 220-pound receiver with speed that can run, big-bodied, athletic, can jump. I mean, it is crazy when you look at the physical attributes of these kids today. It is unreal. And going to all these big-time programs. So the future of football, not only college football, because many of these kids are going to be playing in the NFL soon. The future of football is bright. And I think Steve Mariucci, the great coach, he's a part of Under Armour, and I had some good conversations with him. I want to say in the 14-year history of Under Armour, they've had 71 first-round picks playing that game, go on to be first-round picks in the NFL, which is pretty extraordinary.
Rene, what did you think of the Military Bowl?
I didn't catch the Military Bowl because I've been so busy. That was this week, right? I don't even. It hasn't even been.
It was East Carolina's bowl game. We got canceled.
Oh no, I thought you were talking about the other All-Star game. I apologize. Yeah, well, I was probably as aggravated as you guys were. A little different because I look at it. I try to be subjective, right? Because I'm kind of on the outside. You guys are in the, ECU fans. And I was aggravated. And Kyle, it just reminded me of basically the season that I went through the year before with COVID. So, yeah. And listen, I don't know. I'm not casting aspersions. I don't know. I understand what Boston College said happened, and I get it. But what I will tell you in general, and I went through this during the 2020 season, is if you give a team or a program a built-in reason, I don't want to say excuse, but a reason to shut stuff down, they're more apt to do it. So, if you lose 4 or 5 guys from COVID and you can normally play a game, but oh, by the way, you got 5 transfers and you have 7 other injuries and you have opt-outs or whatever the case may be, and then you combine it all in, of course the program's going to say, we're not going to play this game. We're not at the capacity to play the game. So when you give programs that choice, that's what's going to happen. And that happened to a lot of just regular season games that tried to get played in 2020. So that's kind of what it reminded me of. And I felt really bad for ECU, the program, and not getting a shot at that. So it was unfortunate.
Yeah, when you have your 4 of your 5 starting offensive linemen rumored to be opted out, and your quarterback just came back from an injury with an injured hand and probably don't want to play behind the backup offensive line. And now you got reportedly 6 players with COVID. And it becomes a nice reason, as you said, to be able to not play that bowl game.
And let's be honest, right? When you're a Power 5 team, right? You're in the ACC. It's only going to hurt you, right? Because if you play the game and you win it, everyone's like, "Well, you're supposed to win it, right?" It's an
tradition. We have, it's kind of a tradition to lose to East Carolina if you're an ACC team.
Yeah.
North Carolina, NC State does it. So we just was giving Boston College an opportunity to win the fans.
That the day before, I was so psyched for that game. I was like, all right, we're going to get a good game, a good matchup. And so when I did my bowl predictions, when I did the American Athletic Conference bowl special, I was undefeated. I ended up going 4-0, but of course, all the other 3 of the games got canceled out of the American, including the one we're talking about. So, but I was really looking forward to that game because I know how.
And you had picked East Carolina to win it, and your co-host on the show did also, if I remember right. The young lady,
she did.
I don't remember her name.
She did, so, Morgan Uber. So I was excited for Coach Houston and the players, and excited for a good bowl game. And then just obviously it's tough, right? It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But that wasn't the only game. So look at Memphis, right? They were in Hawaii. People are like, oh, they got a free trip to Hawaii. Listen, they went there to play the game. You don't want to go all the way there to play a bowl game, and then at the last minute they say, yeah, we can't play. So
yeah, and hats off to Central Michigan taking advantage. We were given the same opportunity. Our athletic director said logistically we couldn't pull it off to go to the Sun Bowl. Well, hats off to Central Michigan for getting that opportunity to go to the Sun Bowl when the Arizona Bowl got canceled, taking advantage of it, and upsetting Washington State on CBS at 12 noon on New Year's Eve. You think that didn't help their program and get a couple kids' attention?
Sure it did, yeah. But I understand where these athletic directors were coming from. Logistically, it can be a nightmare, right? Trying to go to another bowl game, and then on top of it, if you haven't done any prep for a team, that's really hard too. When Rutgers got put in the Gator Bowl, at least they had like 10 or 11 days to try to prepare for Wake Forest. That was an uphill battle because Wake Forest was a really good team this year. But just going back to your point, Central Michigan, kudos to them, right? And Coach McElwain getting them in that bowl game, switching it up like that and going down there and getting a big win.
Yeah, and the reason, the preparation point of it, I understand, but it goes both ways. East Carolina wouldn't have had a chance to prepare for Washington State, and Washington State would have had a chance to prepare for East Carolina. I know it's a lot closer there from Tucson, where Central Michigan was for their bowl game, to El Paso, than it is from Annapolis. But
and that's the thing, Kyle. I think it's more logistical issues than it was, prepping. The coaches, if the game gets scheduled, the coaches are going to do their best and they're going to go play it. And like you said, it's both ways, right? It's both teams. But I think it's just more of a logistical nightmare. Trying to get everything, all your equipment. A lot of people just don't realize everything that goes into bringing a football team on the road to a bowl game, or even just a regular away game for that matter, to play.
What were some other bowl games, Rene, that really caught your attention? You had Tennessee, Purdue. That was a tremendous game. Let's see.
Hats off to Purdue, Bubba. They had a boatload of players out and went ahead and played that bowl game and beat Tennessee.
They had their best player out too. That was an exciting game. That's, I think, what we think, right, Bubba and Kyle, about bowl season. That's the fun, right? People love college football, right? And the ratings are great. We know that. There's been a lot of talk on social media. The people, the naysayers. Oh, there's too many bowl games, but the numbers don't show that. And then you see a game like that, Tennessee and Purdue. That's just a kind of a shootout. That's a fun game. That's what it's all about. So, yeah, that was one I liked. I'm just kind of scrolling through the bowl season as I look to the right here, see what other ones.
Early on, you had that Coastal Carolina, Northern Illinois game. That was really good. A shootout, 47-41.
Yeah.
Talk about Utah State and the job that played in.
Yeah, Blake Anderson did a phenomenal job, and he left Arkansas State, and had a couple games of his when he was at Arkansas State, and obviously, for those that don't know, I mean, he left, went to Utah State, took it over, and a lot of people say, well, that's kind of just a lateral, right? It's group of five to group of five, but if you remember, his wife passed away from cancer, had a long battle with cancer. And the people I told, it was almost like a reset for him, right? Because he couldn't go anywhere in Jonesboro, Arkansas, without the memories and just everything flooding in. And I know that can be a tough proposition. So kind of like a reset coaching for him to get up there to Logan, Utah, which is a beautiful part of the country. I've been there a couple times. And boy, what a tremendous job, as you just said, Bubba, that he's done at Utah State. And so hats off to him.
One of my favorite games of the bowl season was watching UAB, who's joining the American on ABC in the Independence Bowl, beat BYU, and what a win for the Blazers.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the bigger upsets of bowl season for sure. And you're right. So obviously there was a lot of talk. The Big 12 was really happy with their programs that are leaving the American, going there in Houston with a win, UCF with a big win over Florida. And I actually went to that game as a fan and kind of sat in the stands. I haven't done that in a long time. Obviously the year since he had, even though they lost to Alabama, and then BYU got upset in that bowl game, but they had a good year. But I think the American is pretty happy with the teams that are coming in as well. And you just mentioned one of them in UAB, and UTSA had an outstanding year, and they had an upset win too, beating ranked San Diego State team in their bowl game. So a lot of good matchups this year for sure. And again, I just bowl season to me, guys, never ever disappoints. I mean, the only thing that was upsetting this year was the games we got canceled because of COVID issues.
Yeah, I think actually San Diego State won that bowl game.
Yeah.
Wait, what was that?
As far as San Diego State beating UTSA, but
oh, they did. I read that wrong. Okay, so there you go. That's late.
Yeah, don't you love being called out on the podcast there?
Yeah.
But since you brought up San Diego State, and Kyle brought up an interesting point, and something that I definitely did realize just because I follow it pretty closely, but the job that he had done at Ball State, and then obviously also he had a good year or two at Michigan. So I mean, he had won 10+ games at 3 different schools, Kyle?
Yes, Brady Hook has won 10+ games at 3 different schools now.
Yeah, and this is his second tenure back at San Diego State, correct, Kyle? Right, he was there earlier, so he
was there. Ball State, San Diego State, Michigan. Now back to San Diego State, and so.
Yeah, and he's a good coach. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, you're right, and I misspoke as I look at the score now because it's late at night and I'm old. But yeah, San Diego State beat him by 2 touchdowns, but still a good year for UTSA and a great year for San Diego State. So yeah, a lot of good matchups. The Army beating Missouri, and I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. Army finished their season out in the right direction after getting upset by Navy in that game. So, but yeah, a lot of good matchups. As I said, the UCF Florida game, kind of a sloppy game, but a big one in the state of Florida for UCF for sure.
Well, one that surprised me a lot, and I was glad to see it, being an East Carolina guy, but South Carolina just kind of whooping North Carolina. Did not see that coming. Yeah,
and a couple of people asked me about that game, and obviously on paper, once again, and personnel-wise, North Carolina, you look like they would have won that game. So it's a team that I think kind of underachieved this year, right? And South Carolina came on strong at the end. So Shane Beamer when you watch Shane Beamer and you just see him interact and what he's doing for that program, it's genuine, and you can see it. And they're getting in they're recruiting in the transfer portal, and so it's going to be. I think it's a good position for South Carolina. It's really they're in the right direction there.
And this is a 100% true story, Rene. And Pirate Nation, most of you will know this, some of you will not. 2015. East Carolina's athletic director at the time, Jeff Compher, made the poor decision to fire Ruffin McNeil. Brady Hoke was in the office Final interview, Jeff Comfort decided not to hire him. Shane Beamer had just been let go along with his dad. Well, his dad retired at Virginia Tech. Shane didn't get the job. Shane Beamer contacted Scotty Montgomery about the job and was not given an interview. So just remember that, Pirate Nation.
Contacted Jeff Comfort about the job.
What did I say?
You said Shane Beamer contacted Scotty Montgomery.
Scotty Montgomery. He's got all those names floating around in his head. It's all right.
Yeah, contacted Jeff Comfort about the job. And Jeff Comfort decided to hire Scotty Montgomery over Shane Beamer and Brady Hoke. So just remember that, Pirate Nation.
Yeah, it's the coaching carousel is always tough. And then especially when you look back at what could have been. I mean, and how about how many years, and you guys will know this exactly, how many years was Lincoln Riley at East Carolina? Now, I know he was really young, but I'm sure there's Pirates fans that are saying, I don't care how young he was, we should have kept him and gave him the head coaching job, right? I'm sure you guys hear that all the time, and maybe you guys.
Well, I don't know how you do that. You couldn't have, though Ruffin was fired 1 year later. I really don't think, if Jeff Comfort would have told Lincoln, look, we're going to fire Ruffin in 2014 to keep you and make you head coach, he wouldn't have done it. Lincoln owes his coaching career, or at least a part of his coaching career, to Ruffin, and they're very close. And so I don't think that could have happened. I suggested early into Lincoln Riley's tenure that we make him head coach in waiting because, I didn't know how long, Ruffin's still coaching, though, now. He didn't see Texas. So, I didn't think Ruffin would still be coaching at this point, to be honest. But he's still coaching.
And the funny thing is, and that was like an in vogue thing, right? The coach in waiting thing a few years ago.
Yeah.
And then what you found happening was, even though coaches were coaches in waiting, other jobs were opening up and people were offering them, so they were leaving anyway. So, I guess it's kind of nice to have. But one thing that the college football world has showed us is guys aren't afraid to leave, go other places, and programs aren't afraid to open up their checkbooks and get coaches they believe are the right fit for their program.
No doubt. Who do you think the best hire was this offseason? I don't know if we had this discussion when we had you on prior. Are you going to Lincoln Riley at US? The one that I like a lot, and to me, I had this discussion with Coach Blackwell just a minute ago. A good friend of his, Joe Moorehead. To me, Akron hiring Joe Moorehead, I don't know how Akron could have pulled off a better hire. To me, when you look at what a program has to offer and who they could have got, USC could have got anybody they want. Akron getting Joe Moorehead, to me, was the biggest coup of the coaching season. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and exactly. So when you get a coach with the pedigree of Joe Moorehead to go to the MAC, that's a big deal. And so you're on the money with that, Kyle. And so and I did a Mississippi State game a few years ago when Coach Moorehead was head coach. So I had conversations with him, and then we have a bunch of mutual acquaintances, friends, however you want to say it, from back in the day. And he used to be the head coach at Fordham, and assistant coach back up in the Northeast. So we have a lot of mutual friends. So I had some good conversations with Coach Moore. But yeah, I would agree with you. That's a huge get for them, to get him to go to Akron. And so and it's so hard to keep track. I think the final count was 28 or 29 new coaches at the FBS level. So. It's crazy. And the funny thing is, we'll know in about 3 years, right, which ones were the good hires. So we'll see. You got to look back. And I like to give coaches the 3-year mark to see what they can do. So,
yeah, no doubt.
Now, Rene, I have a question, or actually Johnny Gardner on Facebook has a question for you. I'm going to put on the screen here.
Yeah, I did. So I know Ron Vallone. I haven't talked to him in years, so and I'm sure you guys don't know who Ron Vallone is. So Ron Vallone was an all-conference tight end at UMass, about 6'3", 240, phenomenal tight end. He's from New Jersey. And so Ronnie's locker was right next to mine. So when I was a true freshman, Ronnie was, I want to say, a junior. And, our lockers were right next to each other, so I got to know Ronnie real well. Ronnie happened to be a really good pitcher, baseball pitcher. He's a big lefty. So that year, I want to say 92 or 93, he pitched for the UMass baseball team and went down, as the Northeastern schools do, they always go down to Florida for about 3 weeks or a month and play. And in the time that they were down at Florida, he went something like 8-1. And then in a game against, I think it was USF, a matter of fact, struck out like 19, was timed with his fastball at like 91 miles an hour in the first inning and like 94 in like the seventh inning. Unbelievable. And then that year was just phenomenal. And he ended up going first round in the Major League Draft to the Seattle Mariners. He was fourth pick overall, and then ended up playing. If you look Ron Vallone up, I think he's been, and I'm not even exaggerating, I think he's been with about 20 or 21 Major League teams in his career. And he ended up being a setup guy, which is like phenomenal, right? You come in and you pitch to like one batter a game at the end of the career. But he did it all. He was a starter in the major leagues, and he was a middle reliever. He was a closer, then he ended up being a setup guy. But yeah, so I did overlap with Ron Vallone, and I do know Ron Vallone. That's a funny question. Yep.
Rene, you a big baseball guy? You bring up baseball there.
So, growing up, Kyle, probably much like you guys, and this is one thing that aggravates me with our world today. I played all three sports, right? Whatever season it was, I played football, basketball, and baseball. And whatever season it was in, that's what I wanted to be professionally, right? If it was basketball season, I wanted to be a shooting guard in the NBA. And if it was baseball season, I wanted to be a center fielder for the Yankees. And football season, I wanted to play in the NFL. And I think that makes you a better, well-rounded athlete in whatever sport you end up picking. Now these kids they just don't do it. I mean, I see it with my daughters. I mean, it's soccer all year long, and you can't do anything else. And these parents have these kids saying, well, we got to specialize. Baloney. So that's one thing that drives me nuts. So I used to be a huge fan of all the sports. I've actually fallen away from it. I mean, I'll still watch. I still understand the games well. I don't know the intricacies of the people anymore because I have too much going on in my life. College football, and I really don't even watch that much NFL, to be honest with you guys. Everything kind of revolves around college football, and if it's not college football, it's just my family life.
I got you. I didn't know. Some guys, Jay Sunhalter, ESPN Plus analyst, former East Carolina tight end, calls basketball all the time, and I'm like, Jay, you play tight end in East Carolina. What are you doing calling basketball? Jay will be like, Kyle, basketball was my best sport in high school.
So listen, if my bosses want me to call anything else, I will certainly do it. So funny story. When I got done with UMass and I was transitioning to become an NFL player, because there was a year period there where I didn't get drafted, so I was kind of floating around as a free agent. I had a basketball passion. I used to love refereeing basketball. So I was a high school official. I refereed basketball in upstate New York, and I loved doing it. So I really understood basketball a lot. And then baseball, actually, a lot of people said that was my best sport. I was a better baseball player than football player. I was a center fielder, played for a long time, leadoff hitter. And when I went to UMass, I almost did do both, as I talked about Ron Vallone doing it. But I was one of those guys where I didn't want to miss spring ball, spring football. But, as I look back now on it, I wish I would have taken the shot. I tell people all the time, regret is the worst thing you can live with. So while you have a chance to do something, do it. Because you don't want to be 50 like me and look back and say, I wish I would have did that, because that always eats at you. But yeah, so I love all three of the major sports. I'll watch a lot of hockey too. It's one sport that I never played, but I enjoy it, especially playoff hockey like everybody else.
Yeah, and as we sit here in January, and we're about to talk about the national championship game here in a few minutes, and we're in the heart of basketball season. But let me tell you something. I don't know how much you know about East Carolina beyond football, but people say East Carolina is a football school, and no, we're a baseball school. Top 20 baseball program year in, year out, and about this time, most Pirate fans are starting to get itchy for February and the start of college baseball season. So it's going to be fun around here in about a little over a month now. Yeah, and the Americans are a really good conference. I mean, I've gone to some UCF baseball games. They got a nice little stadium there, and so yeah, it's a really good conference. I enjoy it. I haven't been to a college baseball game in a while, but they're fun. I would give you you live in Florida. The American Conference tournament every year is played down there in Clearwater. Yep. And it is. I hear great things. I've never been down there for the tournament, but hear great things about the stadium, and the whole. Well, you would know Clearwater. You live in Florida, so
yeah, it's a beautiful area. So, but that's an idea. I should probably shoot down there, maybe catch some games this spring when the tournament comes down here. That's something that I'd probably look forward to doing.
No doubt. I was kind of killing time here, waiting for Bubba to come back so we can talk about the national championship game. If you're wondering why I'm rambling about baseball,
Bubba's there.
I can quit rambling about baseball now.
Now, hey, I do have to impress. I do have to admit that I am impressed, Kyle, that you, switched gears and started talking baseball. I thought you would have stuck with college football.
Well, you know what? I'm very versatile. It came from the Johnny Gardner question, which led into a natural baseball discussion, Bubba.
So, Rene, you heard that conversation. You heard probably the last 10 minutes or so where we were pretty much talking the national championship game with Coach David Blackwell, and you heard his take and thoughts on some things. How do you see this rematch playing out?
So, I mean, I've always lived by a rule of thumb as a broadcaster. When two teams play each other a second time, I always give the advantage to the team that lost. I just do, because I just think when you're a good team and you lost the game, you're able to make the adjustments necessary. With that said, though, it's Alabama they're playing against, and too many people have been burnt, right, betting against Alabama and Nick Saban. I just don't know how you do it. But the one thing, with all the complaining and everything that goes on in college football, we got the two best teams in the game, and yes, they happen to be from the same conference. So I'm excited for the game. And pretty much, and I heard what Coach Blackwell, said. It's going to be interesting. I agree with him. I do not think Alabama can run the football against that Georgia front seven. I mean, they didn't do it in the SEC championship game. But what Alabama did, which really surprised me, and I think surprised a lot of people, was that offensive line protected Bryce Young, right? So I heard him say, yes, Georgia needs to get to Bryce Young. And I think you brought it up, Bubba. And I tell people this all the time. You don't have to sack a quarterback. You just got to get him off his spot and just make him uncomfortable. Bryce Young was very uncomfortable against Cincinnati, right? But the good thing for Alabama, and this was the biggest thing, guys, and we didn't really talk about this. This is the biggest difference between the Group of Five and Power Five, and we saw it in that game, is interior line play, right? I mean, Alabama was a bully in that game, and they said, we're going to run the ball, and that's what they did against Cincinnati. And that was, to me, was obviously the difference in the game. But that you're right, they didn't protect well. So I think Georgia's definitely going to get after Bryce Young. But to me, this game hinges on offensive line play once again. It really does. Now, I do think Mechie being out of this game makes a way bigger difference than it did against Cincinnati by far. Because not only does Alabama have to protect quick passes, right? So just Slade Bolden step up. Ja'Cory Brooks has stepped up well. And Jameson Williams really, again, not a big passing attack against Cincinnati whatsoever. So, can they protect? Can they get those quick passes out, kind of like they did in the SEC championship game? And then for Georgia, Stetson Bennett, can the kid win the game? Of course he can. I think for him against Alabama, it's more mental than anything else. I really do. I think it gets in your head, right? And I think that Alabama defensive front, defensive line, Will Anderson, they're going to get after him. Same type of thing. Try to make him uncomfortable. And can he protect the football? Those two interceptions crushed him against Alabama in the SEC championship game. And I believe the last time they played the other game, he had 2 or 3 interceptions, if I'm not mistaken, or he's had some big interceptions, some big games. So he needs to protect the ball as well. And then can Georgia run the ball a little better as well? So, listen, I don't think we're going to see anything crazy from either team. I think we all know kind of what they need to do. And at the end of the day, I'm kind of with Coach Blackwell. I really do think it's a 50-50 game. And if it wasn't Alabama, I would say I am going with Georgia in this game. They lost earlier on. They kind of got punched in the face and woken up. But because it's Alabama, I refuse to bet against Alabama until they show me they've lost. Now, I did I should say this in full disclosure. I don't have a rooting interest. I love college football, right? I went to UMass. Obviously, that's my alma mater. So when they play, I want them to win. My wife kind of grew up as a little girl in Alabama with a lot of relatives. So she's a diehard Bama fan. I will say this, my life is much easier when Alabama wins because my wife's in a really good mood. When they lose, not so much. So a few years ago, my wife never asked me for anything. And a few years ago, she said, hey, if Alabama makes it to the national championship game, so this would have been 16, the game was in 17 when they played Clemson. So earlier in the year, she said, if they make it to the championship game, and it was in Tampa, can you get tickets? And I did. And everyone thinks I got free tickets from ESPN. I did not get free tickets. I bought them at face value. They were expensive. So we went down there, and that was a great game. And that was the game where Clemson won basically with 4 seconds left, the touchdown reception in the end zone. Bama got me that time. I spent a lot of money for my wife. But other than that, I mean, they're just always there. So I'm just looking forward to a really good game, and I think we're going to get one.
Yeah, no doubt. And that was a tremendous game. Remember it well. But, something else that, came out here within the last 3 hours or so, I just happened to see it a moment ago, and that is an announcement as far as the college football playoff. This is from Brett McMurphy. He said in Las Vegas and Miami, we're going to host the college football playoff championship games in 25 and 26, respectively. And those dates would be either the 6th or the 20th of January for that first game in Las Vegas, depending on whether the college football playoff expands or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think Las Vegas is, a phenomenal. It's a fun city, right? I mean, so that's going to be an interesting championship game when it goes there for sure. I think that'll be a lot of fun. But you hit on it too, and so I did someone's show a few weeks ago, and they said, give a bold prediction for 22. I don't know how bold it is, but I think this year, especially with Georgia and Alabama playing in this game, I think the powers to be will come together and they'll solidify a 12-team playoff. Now, I don't know when it'll go into effect. I think that's a different issue, a different talking point. But I think this year, I think they're going to sit down, and I think we're going to get a 12-team playoff solidified before the end of 2022. Just my prediction.
Will the group of five get a legitimate spot?
That's one of the holdups, right, Kyle? Because some of the conferences, the alliance, right, they want the autonomous five schools, those five conferences to be automatically in. And the original, subcommittee that looked at it said, no, it should be the top 6 conferences. I mean, if you don't have enough faith in your conference that you're going to be one of the top 6 and you're an autonomous five, that to me that says volumes, right? So I think it needs to be the top 6 conference champions, top 6 highest ranked conference champions, and then you got the 6 at-larges after that. I just don't, I don't see it any other way, So
yeah, I agree with that 100%. I would take the language of the 5 autonomous 5 champions and then the highest ranked champion of the group of 5. I would take that because you'd end up with the same thing most years.
Correct.
But it would certainly sound fairer to say the top 6 conference champions.
Well, and like, again, granted, it was the COVID year, 2020, but we all know under that format, you would have had the Sun Belt champion in and Coastal, and you would have had Cincy in. So, so if you're those conferences, you're like, no, let's be the top 6. But I understand what you're saying, Kyle. So, but to my point, I think the language will get solidified this year, and I think everyone will come to an agreement, and we'll move onward and upward. So, and I'm looking forward to it.
Now, Rene, the final thing I have for you as we wrap this up, one of the things you often see from various media outlets is, way too early top 25 or things of that nature when they need content, heading into the 2022 season after Monday's game. What are some of the things that you maybe a hot take or two on something that could happen in 2022?
Well, my hot take is, and I think you guys touched on this, is how the hell do you know? Because you don't even know what players are going to be on what team. I mean, the transfer portal is ridiculous. And then the quarterback position, right? I mean, I just read something where if you count all college football, so Division II and Division III, there's over 4,000 players in the transfer portal. That is crazy. And I want to say 3,000 or 2,800 are FBS players. And you just see the movement in the quarterback. So with that said, that I'm kind of wimping out on your question because I really don't know. I just think it's so hard. I think the one thing we do know is I think the halves will be there once again. The Alabamas, the Georgias, the Texas A&Ms. I think the top of the SEC will have it. It'll be interesting to see. And it's funny. I was going to say it's going to be interesting to see where Clemson is. I would love to be a fan of a program where they say you had a down year and you won 10 games and a really good bowl game. So Dabo Swinney, really, hats off to him, right? But in regards to where they normally are, it'll be interesting to see where Clemson bounces back. But I think Ohio State's going to be there again. We'll see what happens with Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. I know there's some talk that he could go to the NFL, but they got a lot of talent there as well. So so I guess my early prediction is the teams you think are going to be good are going to be back up there again. Who are going to be those surprise teams? Hard to tell right now for me. I'm interested to see what Mario Cristobal does at Miami. And again, it's tough to get right in there 1 year on the job and really turn things around. But we'll see. Someone will do it. There's going to be some surprises next year for sure.
Are you surprised Oregon's kind of become a stepping stone type job with the money they got from Nike?
I just think it's I just think it's a tough. First of all, the Pac-12 has their issues. We know that, right? We just kind of talked about it, right, in terms of like going to a 12-team playoff. Although a 12-team playoff I think it helps the Pac-12 out tremendously. It gives them a lot more opportunity. I just think when you're in that part of the country, you're just kind of isolated recruiting wise, and people say, "Oh, baloney! They got they got Nike and they got all the money in the world, like you said, and they got phenomenal facilities." But it just goes to show you when you're kind of isolated there, it's hard to recruit the entire country, and that's to the larger point for the Pac-12, and that's where Lincoln Riley comes in. The Pac-12 teams have to start keeping top-notch players home at the West Coast, right? I mean, just look at all the players from Southern California that have left and gone to the SEC, just one conference, right? It's ridiculous, right? Bryce Young, and so they need to start. They need to start keeping some of those players home. And I know his name escapes me. I believe it was Dante Williams. They kept. I could be wrong, but I know USC kept a top-notch prospect home this year, and it was between USC and Alabama, and they kept him home. So they need to start doing that. And once they do that and they start keeping some of that talent, I think you're going to see the Pac-12 kind of to rise back up. But just to get to your initial point, I just think it's tough in Oregon. And really, Mario Cristobal, again, to me, that's a legacy thing. He's Cuban-American. He's from Miami. His family's there. His mom was sick. He was going back to Miami. He played there. And to me, that really played into it. And I think Miami just finally said, okay, we are going to pony up. We're going to pay what we need to pay. And we're going to fix our facilities here, which they have to. It'll be interesting to see. Rumor is that they might get an on-campus stadium where the Coral Gables High School is. I think there's 9 or 10 acres there. They could do it, and they would relocate get a new high school. I think that would help them tremendously, because as much as these programs want to say, "Oh, we play in Hard Rock or we play in Raymond James USF," there's nothing like an on-campus stadium. It makes a world of difference for programs. It really does. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, and I think it would help Miami out tremendously.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there as far as the on-campus stadium. And when they build it, it'll be interesting to see how big they build it, because even with all the success they had over the years, I mean, sure, they had games at the old fabled Orange Bowl where they had sellouts, obviously, but, they didn't necessarily always draw as well as you would have thought based on their success. And so maybe a stadium, similar to something like Baylor has, that's very, very nice,
Yes.
but not much more than about 50,000.
I was going to say 40 to 45,000 is a sweet point. And then you just put in, especially in Miami, like Coral Gables, then you just put in a bunch of suites, right? Because that's what people want, bunch of suites, get your money there, 40, 45,000. Baylor's nice. What you guys have in Greenville, I love that stadium. UCF's 45,000. Like that's like the sweet spot for a lot of programs, which is really good. And then when you kind of, you don't have a great crowd and you have 20, 25,000, it doesn't look bad in that stadium. The sound's still good. When you put 20,000, 25,000 in a 65, 70,000 seat stadium, the optics don't look good. You don't get that energy, but you can still get that energy from 25,000 fans in a 40,000 seat stadium. No doubt about it.
And that's something here in recent years. You saw the University of North Carolina, go from at least 60, maybe 63,000 seats down to 50 or 51,000 when they put all the light blue chairbacks in Kenan Stadium.
Yeah, put the suites and the hospitality seats where you can go inside, and I think that goes a long way. It's a lot better.
Well, Rene, we certainly appreciate you being so generous with your time and patient with us tonight with a little bit later start than anticipated. But certainly hope your 2022 is off to an excellent start, and we look forward to catching up with you down the road, and obviously look forward to having you back on to talk about your podcast once you get all the details figured out and promote it.
Sounds good. Happy New Year to both of you guys. And yes, if the podcast takes off, I guess Kyle's going to have to get some type of royalty, but we'll have to figure it out. Hopefully we don't have to get the lawyers involved, but we could probably figure it out. So
it's going to be big, Rene. It's going to be big. Hey, I got a case for you. It's not sports related, but are you familiar with the Delphi murders?
A little bit.
It's a very interesting case, not sports related, but
that's the family, right? Was there family involved with that? Or
no,
I'm thinking of another one.
It's the Delphi murders involves two young girls getting killed on a bridge,
okay.
and it's unsolved, and it's just a case that I don't want to say fascinates me, but it interests me. So not sports related, just something for you to look up in your spare time.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Happy New Year.
All right, take care. Tremendous conversations with David Blackwell and most recently Rene Ingoglia. If you enjoy hearing college football talk and not only on the field but all the surrounding things like NIL, opting out, etc., then this is the podcast for you.
Yeah, no
Kyle,
doubt. Kind of all over the place.
Okay.
Yeah, Bubba, you're cutting out, Bubba. It's on your end.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Podcast kind of all over the place tonight, but a lot of college football discussion about the NIL and opting out and bowl games, and I think it makes for a lot of interesting topics along with the national championship games. Now my dogs want to chime in, but
yeah, I heard the squeaking toy back there.
Yeah, that was actually Jessica. No, that was Nikki. Was squeaking her toy, running around playing, and now the Chihuahua wants to bark at her for squeaking her toy. But anyway, kind of all over the place at the end of the podcast. But thought it was a good show, Bubba. And as we wrap things up here last night, I know you guys did a post-game basketball podcast. I did not participate, but huge wins for the Pirates last night, and now we go on the road to Temple. Can we get 2 in a row and get to 11-3 on the season?
Yeah, and you take a look at Temple. Temple had certainly had their share of struggles this year, but they went on the road down to a UCF team that had just beaten Michigan by double figures, and went down there. I think they were even playing the game shorthanded and won in Orlando. So right when we can certainly go up there and win. I'm not saying that, but that game is going to be even more challenging than you may have originally thought.
Pirates are going to get it done. We're going to keep rolling. This is going to end up being a surprisingly good basketball season. I just got a feeling, man. Last night there was just something about that game. Watch me be wrong as crap, but it was just something about the way we played in that game, and didn't give up. And I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
We're finding ways to win, something that we haven't historically done on a consistent basis, and we're kind of doing that now. Even when we don't have our A game, we find a way to get it done, and hopefully the crowds will grow, because last night left a lot to be desired. I know we're dealing with COVID. I know we're dealing with.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that a little bit, Bubba. I think that had a lot to do with people just out of sight, out of mind. We had 2 basketball games canceled. We have not played a basketball game since prior to Christmas.
15 days.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably didn't even realize that game was being played last night. They probably thought we were still under COVID pause. And, plus a lot of people are sick. So I think you kind of got to take last night with a grain of salt with the attendance. I would expect if we can go on the road and beat Temple the next home game, which when is that and who is it against?
Okay, between now and then we have 2 road games. In addition to the Temple game, we also go to Cincinnati. But the next home game is Saturday the 15th, and that will be against the very talented Memphis Tigers. Not only do you have Penny Hardaway as the head coach, but you also have Rasheed Wallace on staff and Larry Brown on staff. And Larry Brown's won pretty much everywhere he ever went, college or pro, in the NBA, with the exception of Matt Simmons' New York Knicks. And they have so much talent on that roster. They're just trying to figure out how to manage all that talent.
Well, just coaching talent. They may not know how to manage. You might have too many Chiefs and not enough Indians. But so that'll be next Saturday with the Memphis Tigers in town. Yeah, if we can win one of these next 2 on the road, you figure that for the Tigers coming to town, maybe we'll have a much bigger crowd on next Saturday with Memphis coming in.
Yeah, no doubt. And appreciate Craig, as always, chiming in again on Facebook. He said you guys are grabbing great guests. Congratulations on your success. So appreciate it, Craig. Coach Blackwell is excellent. They're very straightforward and gives you a lot of great insight, a glimpse behind the curtain, if you will. And then Rene Ingoglia, he's, for probably at least 2, maybe 3 years now, very early on in our podcast, he came on, and then not only does he come on, he comes on and spends 30 to 45 minutes or more with us, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, no doubt. Both great guests, and as Rene goes on now. And by the way, if people aren't familiar with Rene Ingoglia's background and didn't understand the continuous references to True Crime Podcast, in addition to being being an ESPN analyst for college football, former NFL and UMass start running back, Rene was a homicide detective down in Florida for many, many years, and so that's why I kept kind of harping on him to do a sports-related true crime podcast, and looks like he's going to do it. So if anybody was wondering what that was about, that's the relationship between him and true crime.
Before we get out of here, a few things we want to plug. Obviously, our ALS fundraiser, TSO's Strikeout ALS fundraiser. Our goal is $2,300. If we can raise more than that, I think I will not be surprised if we raise significantly more than that. But it's off to a pretty solid start. We're, I think, right around $250, and we've only been at it for 24 hours or so. So we appreciate the 5 individuals we've had contribute to that. And that is pinned on our Facebook page. Just search the Sports Objective, and it's the purple logo. And then you also have it pinned on our Twitter account, which you can find at @thesportsOBJ. We also on Facebook have the Pirates Cove, and the Pirates Cove has seen significant growth over the last week and a half to 2 weeks. We have about 85 new members and are closing in on 1,000 in the group. So if you're on Facebook, definitely send us a request to join the Pirates Cove. And then lastly, here we are early in 2022. a lot of success. Obviously, the baseball program just continues to roll under Cliff Godwin. Basketball has shown significant improvement. Hopefully, that will continue. And then football program. Obviously, the football program is what drives the ship, so to speak, with all the money involved and the passion that Pirate Nation has for it. And with that being said, we really need to grow the Pirate Club. At the Pirate Club's largest point, we had over 8,200 members this year when we were right around 5,000, maybe just under. So, hey, if you're passionate about the Pirates, call 252-737-4540 or go online to ecupirateclub.com. You can certainly reach out to us at thesportsobj@gmail.com if you have any questions, or obviously just reach out directly to the Pirate Club via ecupirateclub.com, and they'll be glad to answer your questions, or you can give them a call and they'll be glad to answer your questions. But stay tuned here in the coming days and throughout 2022. We'll be releasing a series of Pirate Club shorts, I'll call them, and you'll hear from former athletes, coaches, fans about what it means to them to join the Pirate Club and why they feel it's so important, and why we need to significantly increase our numbers, not only donors, but also the amount of money we're raising. Because one of the crazy things when you look at it, Kyle, the money is pretty much we've hit our goals for the most part in terms of dollars raised. Maybe not always, but fairly close, despite our shrinking membership. So you've had fewer people, giving more.
Yeah, and that's great, but it's always nice to have more people give more. If those few people keep giving more, then we have more people. That'll be even more. So, thanks to all those current Pirate Club members for stepping up. But we need to grow this thing, man. You're not going to ever stay the same. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. And we've been kind of treading water here in the last couple of years after a significant decline. We need to start climbing it back up and getting that membership back towards 8,000. And I think a good goal by the end of 2022 would be to have 6,000 Pirate Club members.
Yeah, no doubt. Really have to see a significant increase there, and kind of along those things. When we definitely can, and along those lines, you also have the Letter Winners Club. That is different from your Pirate Club membership. That is $100 for letter winners, and some of the perks that come with that. You may receive free tickets or at least reduced price tickets for not only football games, but if you're within 3 or 4 hour radius of Greenville, where you can get to Greenville for men's basketball games, baseball games, and things of that nature, it's well worth it to join that Letter Winners Club. And obviously, hopefully the main reason Letter Winners are doing that, in addition to those perks, is just supporting the program that meant so much to them and continues to.
Bubba, you completely cut out, man. I don't know what happened. But
can you hear me now?
Are you there? Yeah, we got you. Now, okay. Is that Letter Winners Club a chapter of the Pirate Club?
I'm not sure exactly. I think it is, but don't hold me to that. I know it's on the ECU Pirate Club site, obviously, but I think they may look at it as a branch of the Pirate Club. But I do know that. According to Matt Big Eye Maloney, that several letter winners are members of that, in addition to the Pirate Club itself. So you do get a variety of perks with the Letter Winner Club membership, but not exactly the same as the Pirate Club and some of the things that are offered there.
Gotcha. Well, Bob, I don't know about you, man, but I think we've beat this horse to death. Ran this podcast into the ground. In the words of our friend, the great immortal Dave Richmond, I think it's time to wrap this thing up.
Yeah, no doubt. Dave would be proud of us tonight, Kyle. Going.
We're some rambling fools. He'd be proud. Yeah, we put 3 hours or so. I mean, this is a Dave Richmond style podcast. Just keep going. Just keep rambling.
An hour and 50 minutes. our soliloquy, if you
We
will.
got to hit a round number. We got to get to 2 hours.
Yeah. Hey, we only got 10 and a half minutes to go. But no, we appreciate everyone tuning in. Our next show will be on Saturday. We'll have a Pirate basketball overtime. Pirates tip off against the Temple Owls up in Philly at 2:00. So showtime is to be determined, but we'll have that. We'll have Brian Pays, probably better known as B Pays. He'll be joining us on that show for at least part of it. I know he's really passionate about Pirate basketball, and so he'll join us. And who knows,
Well,
maybe
he used to play for the Lady Pirates. Isn't that what he said the other day?
no. Oh, shots fired! B Pays will be on to defend himself on Saturday. I'm sure. Obviously, B Pays isn't viewing right now, even though he's so often.
Didn't he say he played for Ann Donovan? Is that what he said?
I think he said he and some of his friends would scrimmage against them in practice, to give them a taller, more physical body to play against, to get them ready for competition.
All right, I misunderstood.
Because I actually, one of my family friends and my parents' neighbors, he honestly, he never played high school basketball, but he was 6'7" or 6'8", so he went to school at Charlotte, and the Charlotte 49ers women's coach got him to come out and practice against their team, and just to give their 6'4" and 6'5" girls a big 6'7", 6'8" body to go against.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I didn't know that was done. Intergender basketball, but nothing wrong with it, I guess. How do the fouls go? Can you just go? Can you just go throw an elbow at one of the girls? Hey, some of those girls probably kick your ass.
Yeah, yeah. You can. I certainly. If you were in that situation, you're opening yourself up to some humiliating experiences if you don't hold your own. If other guys on campus caught wind of you getting dominated in the paint.
Dominated. Wait a minute now.
Yeah, I knew. As soon as I used that word, I was like, "Oh gosh, I'm going to hear about that from Kyle and Johnny and whoever else." But totally harmless choice of words there. But let's go ahead and get out of here before I stick my foot in my mouth. But here Craig says Ann Donovan's taller than B Pace for sure. Yeah, oh yeah, Ann Donovan was 6'8". B Pace, I'm not sure where B Pace is, but I think B Pace is, I don't know, because maybe 6 feet to 6'3", somewhere in that range. But B Pace will be on the program for overtime on Saturday.
He's glad to know he got all his airtime tonight.
Yeah, hey. You never know, and so we got our upcoming content with the Temple show, and then next week we'll have the Voice of Pirates, Jeff Charles, on Thursday, and some other content headed your way, I'm sure, and that is
not if you hear the end of this podcast.
Yeah, so then you got Mark. Good night, guys. Great show as always. Appreciate that, Mark. But for the absent Dave Richmond and Kyle Barber, I'm Bubba Rosenbaum. You've been listening to and watching on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter, The Sports Objective. Have a great night, everyone. Go Pirates.